TaxAct knows filing taxes can be confusing, so we have live experts on hand who can help answer any questions you may have. Questions like, can I claim my SUV as my home office if I answer work emails in my car? If I adopted 12 dogs this year, can I list them as dependents? And, am I doing this right, or am I doing this very, very wrong? Our experts have the answers to those questions and many others. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Refreshing Wild Cherry Cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Now streaming. Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect.
The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Now streaming, only on Disney Plus.
Stairs to your left. Smoking's upstairs to your left. Smoking's upstairs.
Hey, Ray, is Dolly Parton giving you a percentage of the profit? What can I do for you, gentlemen?
You the guy with the Van Halen tickets?
That could be.
How much you want for something in the first 10 rows?
$20 a piece.
Those tickets are only $12.50.
So don't buy them.
Come on, Arnold. All the other scalpers are sold out.
Scalper? Did you call me a scalper? Listen, gentlemen, I perform a service here, and the service costs money. Now, do you want the tickets or don't you?
Okay, we'll take them.
All right. What did I say, 25?
20.
Hey, what's up? This is Josh Todd from Buck Cherry, and you're listening to The Hook Rocks with Jay Scott.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good evening to you. This is Jay Scott. Welcome back to The Hook Rocks, the ultimate rock community podcast. Hope you're doing well, staying safe, staying healthy. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, so check out my fellow podcasters on pantheonpodcast.com, Pantheon Pods on Twitter. You can check out my guys and Shout Out Loudcast. You can check out Mistress Carrie out in Boston, Martin Popoff, the rock historian, Carmen Apiece, Vinny Appice, Cobras and Fire, a whole bunch of podcasts to check out, music-related podcasts. Happy to be a part of that family. And wherever you're listening right now, please subscribe and follow whatever platform you're using, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, Deezer, whatever you do to podcasts. Please follow and subscribe. Write us a review if you so choose. Let us know what you think of the latest episodes or episodes that you're listening to. And give us a follow on Twitter and a like on Facebook. You can follow us both at The Hook Rocks. And we are ready to welcome in our next guest. She's a repeat offender. She's one of my favorite guests. She's a joy to have on. She's an open book. The author, the acclaimed author of Unrated Revelations of a Rock and Roll Centerfold, Miss Carrie Stevens. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much I actually had no idea, and I thought I was pretty well connected in the podcast scene. You know, since my book came out, I've made the rounds. But you just mentioned a few that I didn't know about, like Carmen Apathy. I didn't know he had a podcast. So I'll have to start listening. I mean, like, he's pretty, I don't know, he's right up there, like, with one of my favorite drummers and a nicest guy. So
yeah, I would love to interview Carmine. Carmine is like a walking history book of rock and roll. When you consider he's been around since the late 60s with Vanilla
Oh my
Fudge.
God, seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vanilla Fudge.
That makes me feel a little bit better because, you know, I just had a birthday.
Well, you just turned 25, so...
Yes, I did. But that means that, okay, we're joking. I'm glad I'm as old as I am because I saw some great concerts in the 80s. However, okay, I'll be honest, I was born in 1969, and Carmine looks incredible. That is proof that rock and roll keeps you young.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been in Vanilla Fudge, he's been in Cactus, he's been in the Rod Stewart Band. In the 80s, it was King Cobra and Blue Murder. And then, you know, he's just done so much. Now he's overseeing this new band called Kodiak that's I believe they're out of New Jersey. And they're a new band that's really ready to come on the scene. They're like
he was friends with Eric Carr, who I think everyone knows.
Yeah.
You know, my relationship with him. And I believe is he in the Rock Vault? Well, I don't know if they're back in action, but there's a show in Las Vegas, Rock Vault, and I know Paul Shortino's in it, Blas Elias. Every once in a while, like all of our favorite rock stars jump in and make appearances. They switch around the the cast a lot, but I okay, it could be my imagination, but I think he might be in that.
He very well could be. Yeah, he very well could be. I know Jay Shellen from the band Hurricane also does the Rock and Roll Vault.
I went to one of their shows, and unless it's my imagination, I thought I saw it there. But again, it's been a while. It could be my imagination.
Yeah, him and his brother.
Wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. He should be in it if he's not.
Yeah, I mean, him and his brother Vinny. It's Carmen Appice and Vinny Appice. They both pronounce their last names different. Vinny, of course, was in Dio.
Wait, they do that? Okay, then I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah. No, it's...
So, wait, they're brothers, yet they don't agree on the pronunciation of their last name?
I don't know the backstory of it. Maybe I'll have Carmine on, and I can ask him why that is, because that's an interesting question.
Yeah, how many years apart are they? Do you know what year?
I don't know. I know Vinny's the younger one. Vinny's the younger one. Carmine's older. I know Vinny's played in Dio.
Okay, yeah, the pronunciation of the name is either because the fans have it confused, but I would be actually curious if the brothers disagree or not. That's a great question.
Well, no, they do pronounce it differently because Vinny goes by Vinny Appice and Carmine goes by Carmen Appice.
Well, you know what? If I was a woman, I would go by Appice because you know what? It sounds kind of like an easy way to make some money on OnlyFans.
Hey,
you know I'm totally joking.
I know.
That was supposed to be funny, and you're supposed to laugh.
I am laughing on the inside, Carrie.
Appice. No, that is a great last name.
Like a piece of ass.
Like a piece of ass. Carrie Appice. That was I would make a lot of money if I called myself Carrie Appice and did like photos to match. I mean, yeah, I'm a little sick. Excuse me. Funny but sick.
That could be like your alter ego. Like you've got Carrie Stevens and then Carrie Appice. Like if you want.
Somebody's probably already doing that. I have to go fix my Wikipedia because my PR agent told me the other day that there's some thing attached to my Wikipedia where it was like some porno girl name. now I can't remember what she told me it was, but she's like, who's like Chanel Stevens? It's on your Wikipedia. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, I've never used that name. It's not me. I don't know who put it on my Wikipedia. I guess, you know what? I'm so used to people stealing my identity, and I've gone through it like since the birth of the internet. So at least 25 years, I have been having to fight imposter accounts and send them signs, like holding up, you know, a sign, hi, I'm really Carrie Stevens in my ID. And you know what? It gets so old after a while. I'm just like, you know what? Go ahead, use my name, use my identity. It's not really worth that much, you know, like if she can, I guess they're trying to get hooker jobs or whatever they can get out of it. Like, more power to you, I guess. I don't know. Like,
do you have to? Do you have to apply for a hooker job? I mean,
no, they do hooker jobs. Okay, not that I'm an expert in hooker jobs, but in the age of the internet, it's a very competitive business. So think about all of the websites that are out with cam girls and so, okay, what I dealt with, and I want to say it was at least 20 years ago, you know, like they used to use Playmates photos on these hooker sites, and then they would do a switch and date. So like someone would pay for Carrie Stevens with my image, and then I don't know what happens. Maybe the madam says, oh, Carrie's sick today, so we're sending someone else who like already took their money. I don't know. Like, but over time, I just thought, well, you know, now I'm older and there's so many younger girls that are preyed on. So I didn't really think it was going to be a problem for me anymore. And when it was a problem for me, all I had to do is call Playboy security office, and they shut them right down. Now there is no Playboy security office. That's all gone. And honestly, I haven't been bothered by stuff like that in so long. You know, that's one good thing about aging. Like I don't get offered hooker jobs, and nobody uses my name on hooker sites, but they do use me, my old photos, and do imposter sites. And I feel so sorry for people like that, because I don't know what they really look like, but obviously they're unhappy with who they are, and they're uncomfortable in their own skin, and they just want to be someone else. And honestly, I almost feel bad for them, and I don't mind if they want to pretend to be me for a minute. However, if you're using my name and making me have a bad reputation by basically advertising me as a hooker, then and you're making money off of it, then yes, you deserve to have your ass sued. So actually, I've been super busy this week. I have not had time to Google Chanel Stevens or understand why the hell she's on my Wikipedia, but it's not me, and I'll take care of it.
Please let us know. Please keep us updated on what happens with Chanel Stevens.
Yeah, well, no, please don't go Googling her, anybody, and giving her attention, because that's what she wants. So I shouldn't have even mentioned it.
Well, last time we had you on, we talked about your book and all the journey that you've had and the adventure that you've had, and we really discussed a lot. We really went into really in depth into the book. It was a conversation that a lot of my listeners enjoyed. It's one of my most listened to episodes.
Honestly, I couldn't listen to it. I couldn't listen to it, Jay. Do you know why? Because you are so good at what you do. It was almost like a session with a psychiatrist or a therapist, and we went so deep that I was like, I couldn't believe how much I opened up to you. And it made me I don't mean this as an insult. I mean it as the ultimate compliment. Like, you really understood me, and you got me in so many ways that an actual therapist or psychiatrist wouldn't be able to figure out. Like, you helped me understand a lot of why I do what I do, why I am who I am. And, you know, when I'm brave enough, I'm going to listen to it again, because there's a lot of things you analyzed about me that I should really work on. And thank you for pointing them out.
Well, I appreciate that. To me, it was just a conversation, and I read your book, and I picked up on a lot of things, and it was just nice to sit down and have a chat and talk to you about things that maybe some of the other podcasts that you were on that were great, especially, with Tom and Zeus. I really enjoyed that one. But
oh my God, those guys are such a blast. I love them. But yeah, you know what we do is we have fun. Mm-hmm. We laugh. But they're like not my shrinks like you are.
Well, I think also too, Ace Von Johnson told me it was like a TED Talk with him.
Oh no, Ace is my new therapist too, by the way.
Ace is a true gent. He is.
Yes. Ace has become a good friend, even though I've never met Ace in person. You introduced us just because I wanted some advice about Patreon, and I never did do Patreon. I ended up, briefly on OnlyFans, but Ace generously gave me his time and his advice, and it's kind of like you, like somehow, like we just ended up getting close. Like he's actually one of, I don't, like I said, it's weird because I've never met him, but I trust him. Like I feel like I can tell him anything, and he doesn't judge. He gets me. He is never trying to come on to me or hit on me or use me for anything. Like he's just a genuine person, and he just gets me. And I appreciate you introducing us because I feel like, I have a lifelong friend now.
Yeah, Ace.
I hope you're listening, Ace. I love you.
Ace is a great dude. I mean, he was on, and I didn't expect our conversation to go that long, and the conversation I had with Ace was like over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours too. So
I've never even spoken to him on the phone, and I feel like he's one of my best friends.
We when I get to LA, all three of us
got to go out. That sounds a little
out.
crazy. That kind of sounds like I don't have any friends, but I do. I do have a lot of friends. I just kind of, my circle gets smaller and smaller, and I share my time with less people than ever. And honestly, like, he's one I just feel safe with. I don't know why. I just do.
Yeah. So when I get out to LA, hopefully this summer, all of us will go out to lunch or dinner. That'll be a blast.
Yes, I cannot wait, because you're in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I told you this before. I was supposed to be in Illinois for a whole month this summer shooting a movie. Pre-production was slated for May. Now we're in May. I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if the movie's still happening or not. I sure hope so, because then I can hang out with you in Chicago on my days off.
Well, there you go. That sounds like a blast. Hopefully that comes to fruition.
Well, you know what? COVID's almost over. We are, I don't really pay attention to the news outside of, I know what's going on in California, but, I'm still very close to my Irish friends. My second home is Galway, Ireland, and they are so far behind us. I feel so sad for them. I'm usually in Ireland every summer, dying to go back. But, California, we have now, okay, I don't understand this. A couple months ago, we were the epicenter of COVID. Now suddenly, like, we have the lowest rate of any state, and almost everyone's vaccinated. I don't like talking about it, only because none of it makes sense to me, and I have purposely stayed out of the drama. I have a beautiful message, actually several, and no one knows I do this, but I screenshot all of the messages that mean a lot to me. I can't always write back to everyone because I don't know who's on the other side of that screen. And if I write back, usually if I give someone an inch, they take a mile. It doesn't mean if I say thank you for the beautiful message, now write to me 80 times a day. Please don't. But, so I can't write back to everyone, but I do screenshot the ones that are very meaningful that I want to reread over and over. And I got one yesterday, that said, you know what, Carrie, you have kept us feeling good through this pandemic. All of your posts are feel good. And I didn't want you to think that was unnoticed, and just thank you. And I wrote back and I said, you know, I have consciously stayed out of the bickering. I've stayed out of the tension, the ugliness. I've done my own thing. I've just been myself and done my own thing, and take me or leave me. And that was how I lived. And I really didn't notice that anyone appreciated it. So thank you for writing me to tell me that you did. So that was cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, especially when you get feedback, instant feedback from fans and people who follow you and stuff. That's a nice thing.
Yeah, well, and that was on my personal Facebook, and it's not, that person is, I don't know, I hope he's not listening, but some guy in a band. I don't remember what band he's in. I have a lot of friends that are musicians, so I rarely let anyone on my personal Facebook page. But if you're like a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and I assume you're cool because you're friends with certain people, and they just happen to be in bands, because a lot of my friends are. So yeah, it was some guy in a band. Honestly, I don't know.
Well, speaking of bands and speaking of feel good stuff.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to be talking about Van Halen.
Yes, we're supposed to be talking about Van Halen. And
my favorite subject.
Yes, and I figured because we've done shows on bands before. We did a show on Maiden, Y&T, Metallica, Dokken, and we do like these legacy shows of what the band was like and what they were and what their legacy is. And I just did a show this past week about Eddie Van Halen, the innovator of guitar and custom guitars and the Brown sound and all the technical aspects of his playing, and also what he meant to the custom guitar world. I mean, it's just because he basically built his first guitar from scratch. He took different parts. Yeah, the Frankenstrat and everything. So a good follow-up to that episode is the legacy of Van Halen. And I know you're a huge fan, and I couldn't think of anyone that I would rather talk about Van Halen with than Carrie Stevens. You have had a friendship with David Lee Roth. You mentioned in your book.
Kind of.
Well, yeah.
I believe me, I wish I were better friends.
But you have a casual friendship with him, Yes,
of course he knows me. He knows who I am. He used to think I was cool until, well, I have no idea what he thinks of me. I'm just joking. But like, I try to imagine what it's like to be David Lee Roth today, because I'm sure you follow his social media too. He draws a lot, he obviously was going to make this big comeback opening for Kiss, the end of the road tour. I've seen on social media that Kiss has plans to go back out. I have not seen anything about David Lee Roth going with. Have you?
I have not. I've always assumed that was going to happen.
Well, I don't. I don't assume that's going to happen. I think that if that were happening, Dave would be excited. He would be posting about it, and I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Dave too much. I don't know if his Vegas residency is coming back. Vegas is almost completely open. Why isn't Dave's show back in Vegas? These are things I would like the answers to. Is he just home smoking a lot of weed, making those drawings? It's not like I can call him up and ask, but I'm a huge fan, and so loyal, and I will love and adore him forever, just because, you know what, he just makes me happy. And that's why we're talking about Van Halen, because Van Halen makes us happy.
Yes, they do.
Bottom line.
Yes, they do. And you write in your book about how your goal when you were a teenager was to date David Lee Roth. And
I wanted to marry him. Like, I was always like counting the years where I'd be old enough to marry him. I just started when I was 14, so like, give me a break. Okay, everything in my head is like, one break coming up. I'm a true Van Halen fan because I hear Van Halen lyrics to pick out in my speech.
Well, they were such they had such an influence on that time, right? I mean, they came out of Southern California in 1978. They changed the game. Eddie's Playing changed the game. The atmosphere at their shows, the party-like atmosphere was so different than anything that was out there. I mean, you could say Kiss was a good time party band. You could say Aerosmith was.
No, they weren't, though. Kiss never partied. I was on the road.
But they had the rock and roll night party every day, and they had to shout out loud. And, you know.
Well, they did it for the audience. They didn't party.
Right.
That's why they lasted 40-something years now. That they have longevity because they were sober, because the partying was an act. But Van Halen was a true party band.
Yes.
And yes, okay, this part isn't good, but as soon as I saw Van Halen, I just wanted to move to LA and party. I did not want to study. I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to party.
Well, they had such an impact on the youth of America back then. I mean, I remember growing up, everybody had a Van Halen T-shirt. Everybody had the painter's caps. They were mentioned in movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I still do.
Yeah.
Like that would still be me, like wearing Van Halen shirts every day.
They had such a mainstream
you know what's
acceptance.
Funny though, I took my son to a Van Halen concert when he was in 9th grade, and he wore his T-shirt to school the next day. I said, "This is what you do." Because when I was in high school, if you went to a concert, you wore the T-shirt to school the next day because then you were cool. Because then everyone knew that you went to the concert, so you were cool. So I made my son wear his Van Halen shirt to school, and you know what he told me? That kids actually came up to him and said, "What's a Van Halen?"
Yeah.
Yes, and now he's in college, and he recently texted me to tell me that a bunch of, the guys, they were all like, I don't know, they went four-wheeling in Arizona, and Jump came on, and he said, I knew all the lyrics and all the words, and like the guys didn't even like know what song it was, and I'm like, how the fuck did they get accepted to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University not knowing who Van Halen is? That is wrong.
Well, they did have such an impact. They were a party band. They meant so much to the youth of America, and those young kids grew up to be adults to listening to Van Halen. And the thing that was so...
But you know what's beautiful about Van Halen fans?
What's that?
We have a bond.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what you and I are talking about, it's a bond. Like we understand each other, and I don't want to call it a cult because it's not weird. It just is what it is. It's not even one generation, but I think because I wish I was older actually, because I missed a lot of Van Halen. I didn't see them until 1984, and I wish I was older and lived in LA when so I could have seen them at the Starwood and at Gazzari's. That would have been amazing.
Well, they had, like I said, they had such an impact on young people back then, and they grew up to be adults, and they still are Van Halen fans. But what was so different about them was they had the mainstream acceptance. They were talked about in movies.
But they were smart.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't
yes,
so
they
much.
Were. Well,
yeah,
I'm gonna. Okay, I told you, like, you don't even get me started because I can talk about Van Halen for a week. But they were smart because they did the dance songs. They did
right
the covers not because they couldn't play, because they understood how dancing is important to people. Dancing is fun, so people want to move. People want to dance. So that got everybody in the mood, to party because people want to dance. So they had the dance tunes, and then they put in their originals. So they were actually brilliant.
Well, David Lee Roth talks about that, about how so many beats per minute in their songs would make people want to dance. And when you have music that makes people want to dance, girls come to the shows.
And that is kudos to Dave, because he's the one that insisted on that. He grew up, with all kinds of ethnicities, black people, black music. Little Richard was an influence on him. Like, he wasn't stuck in this heavy metal thing. Like, he brought the groove in, you know, like he brought the groove in where Eddie brought in, you know, that heavy metal, like, you know, the guitar licks, and it was like just a perfect marriage. So then when they released this live, when they played live and they did the dance tunes, that's what got everybody going in the club to start having a good time. And then they got noticed by the producers, and I think the producers saw how brilliant they were in doing those dance cover songs, like Dance the Night Away, and decided to release those as singles. And that is why they got noticed. And because the first part of the game is getting noticed. So whatever it takes to get noticed, to do it. And that's why their originals ended up getting heard.
They were a backyard party band when they were first starting out. They used to play these parties in Southern California.
I know. I just saw a documentary. Did you see that? Yeah.
And they would have thousands of kids in these backyards. Police helicopters would have to break up these parties. And it would cause traffic jams. They would be on the news. And in Southern California, they were a big, big thing. Outside of Southern California, they were largely unknown because no one wanted to touch them.
Several years ago, there's a bowling alley. Why am I spacing on the name of it? There was going to be a surprise performance by the original David Lee Roth band with Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai and Greg Bissonette. Yeah, and it got shut. It got shut down before it even opened. Luckily, no one told me about it, so I didn't drive all the way there for nothing. But they would still shut things down. Now, in high school, yes, unfortunately, I was way too young to live here, but that's kind of like why I'm like, I wish I was older just so I could have been a part of that. Like, that's amazing. Like, I feel bad for kids today. My son is obsessed with the 80s. He's 19, and he wishes he could have lived back then. I don't blame him. I wish I moved here. I moved to LA just at the tail end of it. I moved here in February '89, and I'm glad I got a little taste of it, but it was the best time ever. I wish I could have. I can't believe I'm saying I wish I was older, but yeah, I do, just so I could have experienced all of it.
I got to see them in 2007 on their reunion tour. I never saw them with Dave. I saw them with Sammy a few times, but I never saw them with Dave. Yeah.
Oh my God, wasn't it amazing? I saw them first in 1984, and I walked into that arena, one girl, and walked out another. It just changed me forever.
How tight were David Lee Roth's pants at that show?
Well, I don't remember. I'm sure they were spandex.
I just remember watching the video for Unchained.
I actually have photos. I've been greedy with them, so I have not posted them. But I have my friend, this guy in high school had a connection to get us tickets through his dad, and he had professional photos of Van Halen close up. So I have photos from that night of them, everything they were wearing, professional photos that have never been published, but I've been extremely greedy. Like, I've never posted them. They're my prized possession. And actually, I don't even know who actually owns the rights, but it's not printed on the photo, and it's so long ago, it probably doesn't matter. But they are amazing photos.
I'd love to see those.
Yeah, I'll show you personally. Like, I just want to make. I don't know why I'm worried about being sued. I probably can't be on the Wild Wild West internet. Like, who's going to sue me? But they are amazing photos, and yeah, I'll be happy to show you. I'll scan them for you.
I was saying though, David Lee Roth's pants were so tight. I remember watching the Unchained video as a young kid, and he's swinging his hips around and everything. And his junk is like,
still looks great.
His junk is like a 3D movie, Carrie. And I'm like, I'm a young kid. I'm like, dude, get that thing out of here.
In there? do you think he stuck a sock in his pants, or do you think it was real?
You know, I'm not going to speculate.
Hey, I'm not a dude. I know I'm not a dude, so I don't really know what happens naturally. I do know that some guys just don't like to wear underwear, and if you're wearing spandex, okay, I'm a woman. When I wear leggings, you can't wear normal underwear, or you get ugly panty lines. So I have little lace ones that don't make a bump. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I think David Lee Roth was wearing lace underwear, so I think he was going commando.
I probably would go on the side of commando versus lacy underwear. But the point was like I'm like 9 or 8 watching this video, and I'm like, dude, like, get that thing out. Just like come on now. Like, man, like, dude, your junk is like, you know, front and center in this video. He wasn't
the only one. I mean, come on.
But I mean, you know,
all the guys back then.
And then you see the crowd with the female fans in the crowd, just like looking up at him, going, "I want to have your baby," you know.
Well, yeah, I'm sure I was one of those. I was one of those.
But no, they were such a band. I mean, I've even said this. You talked about the pandemic before, in regards to, you know, staying happy and, you know, people sending you messages and whatnot. I've said to a couple people whose kids are kind of feeling down because they're e-learning and they're at home, and I've gone, "Have you put on any Van Halen in the house?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Put on some Van Halen." No one can be in a bad mood when Van Halen is on, because it's impossible.
Yes, it is impossible. And I never get tired of Van Halen.
It's always feel good. It's always good times. And when you look back in that era that they were a part of, and that they were really the leaders of that era from 78 all into the mid-90s, they were always above it. They were always different than the other bands. They didn't conform. They didn't tease their hair. They didn't wear, you know, what everybody else was wearing. They were their own thing. They went by their own beat, and they were authentic. And that party image was authentic. It was nothing fake about it. And we miss that today. And there isn't a band that really encapsulates that.
Yeah, sobriety was not, you know what, it wasn't popular during those years, and many bands had to get sober, like, you know, countless ones, you know, like Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, like Motley Crue. I mean, but they, you know, that's why I think Kiss was so smart, because they never had, they just never even went there. But last I knew, because I hung out with Dave, I'm bad with my timelines, but it was, I want to say 2018, you know, when I was writing my book. And he was drinking whiskey. Backstage, he was sipping his whiskey. He was not wasted. He was not doing coke. Yes, he used to do that, and he's very vocal about it, so it's not like I'm giving his secrets away. But they all did. You know, but eventually it ruins your career if you don't stop, you know. So, but back at that time, I don't think any of us were worried about, I don't know, having to have a drug or alcohol problem. I honestly, I came out unscathed. Luckily, because Eric Carr was my boyfriend, and I wasn't around drugs ever. You know, I'm grateful. But honestly, like, I don't know that Dave, even though he still drinks, and like Eddie stopped drinking, and I don't have a clue about Alex or anything, but Dave's still, like, you know, a whiskey connoisseur. And I'm not a marijuana type of person, but last I saw, he had some tattoo cream, marijuana based stuff. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was to help keep the color of the tattoos.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't
I haven't
fade.
seen him post about that in a long time, but
And he hasn't really posted much at all over the past several months.
Well, no, yeah, the only things I've seen are his drawings, which don't make a lot of sense. Like, I look at them. I'm a bigger David Lee Roth fan than most people, but they look kind of like they're cool, but they're definitely art, which is up to interpretation. So you could interpret them lots of different ways. By the way, I get a lot of female haters just because I was the Van Halen model, which, by the way, had nothing to do with Dave. He did not get me the job. I got myself the job by just being a fan and posting pictures of me in Van Halen shirts. And this year I did a video. I mean, Van Halen is just in me. They're a part of me. I enjoy it. It makes me happy. That's why I do it. But I got a bunch of female haters or like calling me David Lee Roth horror. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I wish. Really? Okay. Yeah. Dave wants to call me and ask me to be his horror. Sure, honey. But no, that's not the truth. And I think there's a lot of psychos, but you know, that kind of comes with being in the public eye. It just does. So I don't give it a lot of attention. I just can't. This is why David Lee Roth probably doesn't post more than his drawings, because if I get hate, he's getting a million times more than I get. You know?
Well,
so
it's an interesting dynamic because Dave was like the equal to Eddie in the band. I mean, Eddie was loved by the guitar players and, you know, the guitar geeks out there that wanted to emulate his sound, and he started a whole genre of shredders. But Dave was like the maestro. He was the...
Yeah, they were both rock stars.
Yeah.
That's where the conflict happened. So I have a lot of people that got wind that I know Dave personally, and my favorite was actually one of the Van Halen Twitter accounts that sent me a picture of a Barbie doll that was on the top of a Christmas tree like an angel, and the rumor going around is that I gave it to David Lee Roth as a gift. And I was like, that is hilarious. Like, I don't know where these rumors get started, but I was never close enough to Dave to buy him Christmas presents. No, we were not that close, but I don't know where that came from, but no, it wasn't me that gave it to him. I really don't know where these things come from. It's amusing, but Dave, you know what? It's really, when you put two rock stars that are, because I've wondered myself, why couldn't they make it work? And everyone says Dave has the biggest ego and he was an asshole and that's why it didn't work. And I've had people ask me because they think that I know him so well. And my answer is, you know what? Noel Monk had a different relationship with him. Like his bodyguard, Edmund, had a different relationship with him. The guys in the band, like I was a girl who he flirted with. I was a girl who met him in a nightclub, and for many years I keep running into him, and he flirted with me. That's very different than working with someone. So I don't know what he's like to work with. In my opinion, look, I never saw him have an asshole bone in his body. Even when we'd be hanging out together in clubs and strangers would come up and want to meet him, he'd be like, and this is Carrie. I love you, Carrie. And I'm sure he was high, but still, he said, I love you, Carrie. And this is Carrie. He was always gracious and always included me and was always nice to everyone that came up to him. He never complained that there were fans. He never said, I hate it when people come up to me. Never. You know, he was just like the most chill, cool, nice person. And that's the way I know David Lee Roth. And that's how I'll always remember him. Hopefully I'll see him again in my life. But if I don't, you know, I only have the nicest experiences and the best things to say. And so all of those books you read saying what an asshole, blah, 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 you know what? Everyone has their opinion, and, you know, it might be true that those experiences, I mean, I can only talk about what mine was, and that's what it was.
From what I've read, I don't know if it was stories about Dave being an asshole or Dave being a jerk. I've always read in what I know is that they never really got along. They were never like friends when they were coming up. They basically were.
It sounds to me from what I've read is that they were until they made it huge. Until
I read a story.
Like,
Noel Monk tells a story in his book about the Woman and Children First photo session. And I guess Dave, without the knowledge of the brothers, Alex and Eddie, was put this poster or allowed this poster to be put in part of the packaging and the vinyl of just David like in this S&M pose on a off of a fence. And the brothers
Neil's laws were I'm always like worried about offending people, but I'll be honest. I did a shoot with an ex-boyfriend like 10 years ago or something who was a musician with Neil. And I was fascinated to meet him because I knew of his Van Halen experiences. And he seemed irritated about Dave. I don't know. I think maybe not just Eddie. Maybe like everyone didn't agree with his sex symbol status. Because Eddie, look at Eddie. Come on, he never tried to be a sex symbol. Like, he was cute, of course, but he was all about his musicianship. And Dave, but somebody has to be the sex symbol. Somebody has to be the front man. And there was no one better at it than David Lee Roth.
Oh, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. During that era, there was nobody better as a front man than David Lee Roth. No one.
I don't think there's been anyone better since.
I probably will agree with you. I mean, a lot of people mention Axl Rose.
Oh my God, no way.
Axl Rose,
no way.
It was a totally different vibe.
No, he is not. David Lee Roth is now, 66 or something? He's thin. He's still, maybe can't jump like he used to, but you know what? He's got a great body. He never let himself go. And Axl was hot, like for 2 minutes in 1986. So I wouldn't call him a front man star.
Well, his was more about angst, though, right? He was more about angry.
But I would say if you want to compare frontmen, even though I pretty much hate Paul Stanley because he's an ass, but I can't stand his voice either. But at least he keeps himself looking good, like his body, not his face. Never mind that Botox eyebrows.
Paul's in great shape.
But his body is great. He moves great. And I would also say, I mean, it's a long time ago, but let's not forget Robert Plant.
Yeah, and Freddie Mercury and all that. But I think from...
Oh, yeah,
Freddie. I think, you had David Lee Roth, and then there were, other frontmen. There was Axl Rose, who I think was more about the angst.
He's not.
Well, not in the level. Not in the level.
Not even comparable.
Yeah, not in the level.
He had 2 minutes of looking good, and he was a skinny, scrawny, little... wiggly guy. There's a ton of those. I could name 20 names off the top of my head. Like Mark Tureen from the Bullet Boys, who still looks amazing. He's still thin and in great shape, and his voice is amazing. So, but on the stature of Van Halen, who was as big as Van Halen? That's why I'm comparing it to Kiss, only because they're as famous as each other. That would be comparable.
I don't think there is.
And I'm sorry, that Axl doesn't compare. But compare. So yeah. I'm not probably winning any fans here, but that's my opinion.
No, I think there's a lot of validity to what you're saying. I mean, there was David Lee Roth, and there was everybody else. I mean, Paul Stanley is predominantly known for what the Kiss was in the 70s.
I prefer Gene Simmons' voice. Obviously, right. I the songs I like from Kiss are Gene's voice. When I'm being completely objective, I'm not talking about any of it emotionally. And it's very difficult for me to talk about Kiss without emotions. But I'm just coming from an analytical point of view, and what I would say. Paul does have, if you put some earplugs in, he has got a lot of sex appeal. I'm going straight to hell after this podcast,
Well, I mean, you think about the frontmen of the 70s, right? You think of Plant, you think of Freddie Mercury, you think of Paul Stanley, Steven Tyler, and Steven Tyler.
Oh my God! Okay, I'm sorry, I just screeched a little, but that's what girls do when they see Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler is fucking hot. And how old is he now? He's probably 70.
He's got to be 70.
Oh my God, I saw him 2 years ago in Vegas on their residency. He is still hot. He hasn't barely aged a day. I was in the third row. I could almost touch him. He looks amazing. Sounds amazing.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Show.
Sounds fantastic.
Yes, he is the ultimate. I can't believe we almost forgot about him. Yes. He has actually surpassed David Lee Roth because he's still doing his thing. No offense to David Lee Roth, because Dave tried. He was opening for Kiss. A lot of people bash Dave because some of the stuff he does is hokey. It sounds like, it's a little Vegas-y. He wants to do, happy trails and wears overalls. And, it's not exactly like, it's not what we all want to see, but there's those of us who just adore him so much. We love everything he does. But Steven Tyler just sticks to what works. He sticks to what works. And if he's still doing the residency, I've been living under a rock, I don't know, but I would go again. Like, that show was unreal. They have, and the wind, blowing his hair, and the sound effects, and the big grand piano, and like, it was just so amazing. So amazing. Well, but he is the ultimate. Yes, he is the ultimate hot rock star at probably 70. Sorry, at least 70.
But I think with
and I met him. You read my book. I met him once when I was 16 years old in some bar after a show in Massachusetts. I'm sure he wouldn't remember, but like, that was so awesome. And he really, probably, honestly, I think he looks better now. I mean, I was very young then, but I didn't have a crush on him. I just kind of wanted to meet him because he was Steven Tyler, but I didn't have a crush. Now I'm like, oh my God, I'm jealous of his girlfriend. She's the luckiest.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say though is that, David Lee Roth was the elite frontman of the 80s, and Steven Tyler did have a resurgence in, later on with Aerosmith. Aerosmith really wasn't doing much until like the late 80s and, into the early 90s.
Yeah, they got a little too commercial for me, honestly. I stopped being much of a fan because they got too commercial. I liked their older stuff.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of outside writers on their outers, like Desmond Child and Diane Warren.
Oh, I love Desmond. Yeah. But their older stuff now is old. I mean, okay, I was going to say I didn't like their newer stuff, but now that I'm so old, their newer stuff is now old. So now it's all classics. Like Loving an Elevator and all that, like, seems too new and commercial compared to Walk This Way stuff. But now it's all old. So it's all great.
No, I just think, when you also talk about some of the other frontmen that were not at the level of David Lee Roth in the 80s, you do talk about Vince Neils, you talk about the Stephen Piercys, you talk about
but they can't compare.
No.
They're great for what they are. I mean, they have great songs, and I love the grittiness of Stephen Piercy's voice. He was very gritty, and Vince has had his ups and downs. He's Vince Neil. I mean, like, he made Motley Crue's sound wouldn't be Motley Crue without him. So, but they're not Van Halen. They're just not.
No. And that was the thing too, right? I mean, you look at all those bands that came out of that decade, and that decade was the generation or the decade of excess. And there's no band that basically sounds like that decade, like Van Halen. Van Halen is all about the excess. It's the excess with the guitar. It's the excess with the stage presence and the stage shows and David Lee Roth jumping all over.
I don't know if you saw my little birthday video. Oh, you probably, I tagged you in it. Running with the Devil. My little tiara.
Yes, I saw it. Thank you for tagging me. I appreciate it.
But is there any other song that compares to that in any way? You can't duplicate it. You can't duplicate that sound, and that was Eddie.
It was I agree. It was the combination of both. And then when David Lee Roth left and they brought in Sammy, it was a different direction that the band went. It still sounded good.
That was kind of like it's kind of like what I was saying about Aerosmith. There came a time where they got too commercial for me, and I took a step back, which I did during those years when Sammy Hagar was in the band. I didn't like Van Halen anymore because it was just too commercial. But now it's so old that now I'm like, wow, actually, I like this. When love walked in.
I liked both versions.
I like it more now than I did before.
Yeah, I always liked both versions because to me, it was still Eddie on guitar.
You know what? It's hard. I think it's hard for those of us who are hardcore Van Halen fans to accept the change with Sammy. It was very hard to accept that. And now it's been so long that I go, wow, yeah, now they're classics. And they're good. They're different. They're very different than the raw, gritty Van Halen. But then again, Dave has made it clear that he is sick of playing Running with the Devil. He doesn't want to play the same old songs over and over again. He wanted to do different things, and Eddie wanted to do different things. So, you know what? We are just very lucky that we got to experience magic. There was a capsule of time where Eddie and Dave were on the same playing field, and they, thankfully for us, you know, they'll never be gone because we have their music, and that will live on forever. But that magic only lasted for a while. So now, when Eddie had to move on, and he wanted to be more electronic, and you know, he wanted, you know, the love songs and the things that Sammy came up with, you know, Dave went his way too, and Dave is still, I don't know, besides doing art now, but he also was more into still the dance vibe and the dance songs, and I think he wanted to be more modern and hip and with the times instead of being a heavy metal guy. So, you know, they grew apart. So,
well, I think,
anyway,
I think Eddie, when you look at Diver Down, and they did, I think it was Dancing in the Street, they did a cover of that, and that had keyboards in it. And there were elements that they had leading up to 1984, not as profound as 1984 had, but that was what Eddie wanted to do, and that's where he wanted to take the band, was more keyboards.
Yes, he called 1984 the first new Van Halen album because that is the way that he wanted to take the music.
And David didn't want to do that.
And it does have a different sound.
Yeah. David didn't want to follow that. David didn't want to be in.
Yeah, it's kind of funny now that he's into EDM. Like right before COVID, he was like,
I remember that.
He went to this big EDM festival and Jump opened, and you know.
Yeah.
But you know, it might feel great for him to still be celebrated like that, and that's amazing.
I think so. I think, you know,
with the whole new generation celebrating him, and you know what? I'm not into EDM, but if they're playing Jump, I'm into EDM, so it's cool.
I think that when you look back, and I think when Eddie passed in October, it brought Van Halen back in terms of appreciation, especially with the younger crowd, the younger generation, because we were just talking a couple of years ago about how when Billie Eilish was asked about Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen, she didn't know who they were. And everyone was...
I told you. Someone might... Okay, I texted you this the other day. I was at my friend's house. His 24-year-old daughter, I showed her the video of me dancing to Running with the Devil. I was going to post on my birthday. And I go, do you know this song? And she's like, no. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Seriously, did your father raise you right? I'm like, because my son knows this. I'm like, not to be an angry person or anything, but you need to know Van Halen. Yeah.
I think it's just, when you look at the band, right, and you look at, Billie Eilish being asked about Van Halen, and there was this big pushback against her. How do you not know who Van Halen was? Well, at the end of the day,
I didn't know Billie. I didn't know Billie Eilish or whatever.
I mean, we're not.
I didn't know who she was. You know why I know who she is now? Because I follow Wolfgang Van Halen, and he was actually extremely. What do you call it? He was kind, and usually he tells people to fuck off. I do notice that, and he has every right to. But when he said, you know what, Billie is great, Van Halen's great, everyone give her a chance, listen to her, and I listened. I listened because Wolfgang said it, and that was that was pretty cool. So that's the only reason I know who she is. So people don't know who Van Halen is. You know what? We learn from each other.
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of the reasons why that happened is because Van Halen really hasn't done much in a couple of decades. I mean, outside of the one album.
Someone was fighting for their life.
Well, I understand that, but I'm talking about even before that. I'm talking about when you look at the album they did with Gary Sharon, they really didn't do much.
I've never heard that album.
Yeah. I mean, so when you think of,
but I think that was 1991 or something when Eric had cancer.
No,
it was a while.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. It was long ago.
It had to be. No, okay. Eric and I went to go see Van Halen.
Well, like what I was saying though is that they didn't really do a lot in terms of music. They did a lot of compilation albums with some songs on it, and yes, Eddie had concerns with his health, and of course, fighting for his life as things got closer to his passing. But I'm talking about last decade. Not these past half dozen to 10 years. I'm talking about even before that. They really didn't do much. Eddie really focused on the gear, the amps, the equipment, where the band really didn't have much of a presence after Sammy left, and they did the reunion tour in 2007 and 2008 with David Lee Roth, and then after that they did the album, and then after that one album with the tour with Wolfgang, they didn't. Really
I was
do
at
much.
Several concerts during their years back together. All of the tours I was on, and I have connections, so I was backstage at all of them, and except one. Not the first reunion tour. I want to say it was, what was it, 2010 or something?
No, the first reunion tour was like 2006, 2007. I think it was 2007.
2000. Okay, I'm trying to remember, but it was the first one that I went to. Their sponsors had a rule: no females backstage, and there was no drugs, no alcohol, no females. That was it when Eddie got sober in the beginning, and there was like a rule: no girls backstage. So it must have been 2006 or something. Then it was a very long time ago, and I got to be friends with, just I don't know. I was just in the front row, and the official band photographer, started taking pictures of me, and so I heard it through inside sources. Like, I forgot who the sponsor was, but that was one of their reasons, like no girls backstage, because they didn't want the band to lose their sobriety and fuck up the tour since they were sponsoring.
Yeah, it's probably insurance. Probably the insurance company.
Yeah, it was something like it was something like that. I couldn't believe it because Dave recognized me for sure. He was singing to me the whole show, and I was like, "Wow, I'm so surprised!" Like, he didn't send someone to come and get me. Like, he read my book many years later. He did at a different show, and he told me that he's always known who I am and blah blah blah. Anyway, it was that. So then many years into this, I've been, long story, friends. I live in LA, so I'm always friends with someone. Like my friend's ex-husband does the lighting for Van Halen. She had tickets, passes. My son and I went. And you know what? It was the most boring backstage ever. It was pre-show only. Nobody actually, no fans, just my son and I and people that, like my friend that was married to the lighting guy, get some food at the buffet. Their PR person, their manager, like I didn't even see not one band member back there, and they did the show and left. Like the party times that we missed. I unfortunately was too young in the 80s to have wild debauchery with them, but that kind of like was what we that inspired our teenage years. We loved it, but everything comes to an end. And you know what? If they acted like that, they'd all probably be dead. Like, all the other rock stars that died of drug overdoses and stuff. They, even me, even though I'm not a rock star, I can't act like that. I have to stretch. I've got to eat right. Otherwise, yeah.
Well, it's hard to recover as you get older too. I mean, if you go,
and I don't even have to do much. I can't even imagine having to get on stage every night and perform. I just have to stand in front of a camera once in a while.
But it's just, it's interesting how the band was still successful even after Dave left, and still had. I mean, they had their first number one record with Sammy. They didn't have a number one record with David.
That's because it was so commercial. What was that?
Well, 1984 was not was commercial, and it wasn't, and it was not. It would never hit number one.
Yes, but Crazy from the Heat and
that's David Lee Roth, yeah,
but he surpassed 1984 with his hits from, even though they were cover songs. They what did he have? Like, okay, I'm spacing on how many songs now, but
he had the two hits. He had Just a Gigolo and California Girls.
Yes, but California Girls reached number one, and his videos were tops on MTV.
Well, yeah, that was extremely commercial.
Yes, so that probably, I can understand like why Eddie kind of didn't like that, because he wanted like his own original music. But yes, his might have not. They weren't cover songs, but it was extremely commercial. Why Can't This Be Love and all that? It's a little choppy, and now I like it better than I did back then. But I am pretty much a hardcore rocker chick. I still prefer all of the old albums that were really hard rock. And Diver Down is probably my least favorite. I like Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2. I like Women and Children First. I got the hardest, earliest are my favorite. And I can understand, I've read interviews with Dave that, he's annoyed singing the same old songs over and over. I'm sorry, I can understand how that is annoying, but I can listen to them over and over and over and never tire of them.
Well, they had a swagger with Dave, right? I think that was the thing. Like they had, it was good time party music, but it had an attitude. It had a swagger, and that swagger was not there with Sammy. It was more mature sounding. It was, I think 5150 in OU812 definitely probably had more commercial elements than everything before Diver Down. I think Diver Down started that path of being a little bit commercial. But then again, you had Dance the Night Away on Van Halen 2 that was extremely commercial. And then you had, what else?
Again, a cover song. And I think that
Dance the Night Away, I don't believe it was a cover song. Dancing in the Streets was a cover song.
Yes, Dance the Night Away is a cover song.
No. Is it?
Yes, it is. Alexa, who originally played Dance the Night Away?
I'm going to have to look that up.
I don't know that. Alexa, play Dance the Night Away.
Dance the Night Away was... Dance the Night Away was...
Alexa, stop. No, someone did it before Van Halen, I'm sure.
No, it was written by David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen.
No, wasn't it Roy Orbison?
No, you're thinking of Dancing in the Streets that was on Diver Down.
Okay, Dance in the Street, but Dance the Night Away was originally Van Halen.
Yeah.
It sounds like a cover.
It does. I will. The only cover.
Do you have your computer? Can you Google this? I'm
looking,
curious.
I'm looking at it right away.
They wrote that song?
They wrote that song. The only cover on Van Halen 2 was You're No Good.
And who originally did that song?
I think it was Linda Ronstadt who originally sang it, but it was written by Clint Ballard.
Okay, I'm shocked because I thought that was an original, and I thought Dance the Night Away was a cover. But Dancing in the Streets is probably what's confusing me.
Yeah. No,
but
Dancing
still,
in the Streets.
Dance the Night Away.
Yeah.
Did someone cover that since? Because it
I'm
just
sure
sounds
they have.
like it's been done a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I don't know exactly who, but yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. But I know Dancing in the Streets was covered by David Bowie and Mick Jagger. You remember that video?
But not Dance the Night Away is what I'm concerned about because I'm confused. I actually didn't know that they were up. Wow, I actually learned something new about Van Halen.
See, you're learning about Van Halen. Before we got on the phone conversation, I taught you how to turn your notifications off for your text message. I'm telling you, instead of having Siri, you should just have Jay.
Well, then I'll just keep bothering you. No.
So I'll get like these voice messages like in the middle of the night. Jay, I need to know how to do this. How do you do this, Jay?
I won't. I promise you, I won't text you in the middle of the night.
No, I'm joking.
If I have a burning urge to message you, I'll try to do it like, I don't know, in a DM on Twitter or somewhere. I won't wake you up.
No, I'm joking. I know you wouldn't do that. We had that conversation too, like, gosh, a few months ago about like late night texts, like who is texting?
My phone is usually off. Recently, I don't know why the freaking vibrating thing was on. I've managed to shut that off, but I have it off it's just off. Now my dog is the problem. My fucking dog likes to wake me up at 6 a.m. and I'm like, ugh.
Just tell your dog to go back to bed. That's what I do to my dog. I go back to sleep. And he looks at me like, all right, I'll go back to sleep.
Well, my dog doesn't listen.
But no, I just think, getting back to Van Halen, they were a band that defined the era, that defined the decade. It was the soundtrack. You could talk about the Madonnas and the Michael Jacksons and the Princes, and those acts were all more pop acts that were, very popular. Probably more so popular than Van Halen. But Van Halen was the most popular rock act with two different singers.
I remember in 1984, like everywhere you went, everybody had stickers, pins.
Oh, yeah. Like, everybody drew their logo.
I'm in high school. I wrote the Van Halen logo and Van Halen rules. So I signed all my yearbooks. Van Halen rules the world. My entire locker was decorated Van Halen. I do have pictures of my bedroom, and I've posted them before, but I don't have any pictures of the inside of my locker, unfortunately. But I was actually the only person in my whole high school that did that. I lived in a small town in Massachusetts where I don't know, they liked Duran Duran, I was like the rocker chick. I don't even know why. I do. It's because I went to the Van Halen concert and I was never the same since.
Well, I think everybody wanted to play like Eddie, and all the guys wanted to play like Eddie, and all the girls wanted to sleep with David. Is that a correct statement?
I don't really know because I've now become a Van Halen historian. According to Noel Monk's book, it was Alex that got all the sex. Did you read that book?
I have not read that book.
It's called Running with the Devil. Yeah, he makes it sound like it was actually Alex that was the sex addict. You don't know. They were all, nobody was hurting, for pussy, but it was more Alex that was, made the major drinker and the guy that got laid more than anyone, according to that book. Michael Anthony comes off like an angel, was married to Susan Young, was loyal to her. Dave, Eddie, yeah, of course, that. I remember the first time I saw them in 1984, Dave on stage making a comment about Valerie. I don't know. I just have this major crush on David Lee Roth. I don't know, but I'm sure many girls preferred Eddie. I don't know.
But I know. But I'm just saying though, as by and large, right? When Van Halen was a thing, they were huge. The girls came to see David, and the guys came to see Eddie.
I don't know. I think Eddie's pretty cute too. Honestly,
he's a good looking guy. But when you got a bulge, the size of Texas in your pants, and you're doing the splits and flying in the air, and you've got the long blonde hair.
Eddie, Dave did his job. That's what a front man is supposed to do.
Right, but he brought the women into the show though. I mean, if they had.
I'd like to say that I would have loved them had I not thought Dave was hot. Obviously I still do, and there's no. I still love their music, and I would still go to their shows with no sex appeal at all. So their music is timeless. So it's a mute point now. I don't think it matters who brought who in. Their music is forever.
Right, right. The music is most important, but the dynamic was always, Eddie. Guys just marveled over Eddie's, fingers going up and down the fretboard, and all the girls saw David Lee Roth, this long blonde flowing hair, and this acrobatic stage presence, and the personality, and this, he was kind of like Tarzan, right? And, Eddie was more this, God guitar player. And I'm sure, there were women that found him attractive, and I'm not saying that there wasn't, but I'm just saying that, like when bands went to go see most bands, right? They always, the front man brought in the ladies, right? They brought in the girls, and then the rest of the guys, sure, I'm sure they had. I don't know.
I honestly am a different kind of girl. Like I like music. So
yeah. I mean,
and I'd never even heard of Van Halen when I went to the show. Someone just gave me tickets, and of course, when David Lee Roth came out on stage, I was so young, but I was like, "Holy shit! I've never seen anything like this." And but to this day, like, hey, I like Rush, and nobody in that band's good looking.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, when you think of, I'm sure there's female Rush fans who would argue with you. And
prog rock has the ugliest fans on earth, and very few females. Please don't ask me how I wound up on a prog rock cruise ship once, but I did. I went on a prog rock cruise with my son, and they are very into their music, and there was hardly a female on the ship. I think I'm a little bit unique when it comes to, and I'll be fair, most of my friends, even when back in the olden days when all those guys were hot in the 80s in rock, they still listened to Whitney Houston and pop in secret, but they just liked the hot guys. I've always liked the music. Like, I like heavy metal. Like, I like hard rock. I cannot stand pop. No, shit. I just can't. I just can't. I can't go to a restaurant and hear crappy music. I walk out. I can't put on my Peloton bike, and I can't ride unless I need the classic rock or the metal ride. Like, I'm truly a rocker chick. Like, I don't like them for their looks. I just like the music, sincerely.
Yes, I mean I agree. I mean, you do like rock music. You've always been a fan of rock music, but you said yourself, right? You said that you wanted to marry David Lee Roth, and
but I was still, come on, I was a teenager.
But that's what I'm saying, though.
Do
That's
I
what I'm
want to marry
saying.
him now?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now is different. But when you were a teenager, when teenage girls saw David Lee Roth, it was like, you know. There was attraction.
How do you think David Lee Roth feels about this?
What's
Have
that?
you thought about how do you think David Lee Roth feels about this now?
Well, now I'm sure he feels differently. But when he was,
No, but I want to bring this up because I'm 52 now. I'm looking pretty fucking good for 52. However, I am 52, and it's difficult because my playmate issue came out on my 28th birthday in 1997. And I never post a photo on Instagram without going, someone goes, was this in 1987? I mean, was this in 1997? And it's like, dude, no, I just still look.
Well, that's just social media trolls and
but
idiots,
you have to understand, though. That's why I'm asking, has anyone ever thought about how David Lee Roth feels? It's not easy getting old in the public eye. If I was rich like him, I would drop the hell out of everything too. But I can't because I have other businesses to promote. But it is not easy. Like the pinnacle of his fame, 1984, is sort of comparing it to me of, me being Miss June 1997. And people want to always think I'm going to be looking like June of 97.
I totally
and it's a lot of pressure.
I just, I'm just talking about their legacy, whereas when they were, on stage back then, and how they feel about that now, I'm sure they have probably forgotten most of what they can remember, right? I mean, I'm sure they probably have more memories that have faded away than ones that still stick in their mind because they lived a pretty exciting full life. So, how does Dave feel about being a sex symbol back then? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Dave really, if you ever watch the Roth show, he does share stories about.
Does he still do that?
He hasn't done it in a while. But when he did,
do you know the last time I saw him backstage? What did I say? 2018. We talked about that briefly, and he said that nobody watched it, and I said, "Well,
bullshit! I love that. I love that show."
Yeah, me too. I said I watched it because I loved it, but I didn't see him doing it much more after that. So
that's disappointing. If he discontinued.
I don't think he does. I have so many YouTube accounts myself now that I don't even know how to find what I'm looking for. But I don't think he's done it. But for him to say to me, like, because I said I watched it, and he said, "You're the only one." Then it made me know, you know what? He's not too much different than I am, because I put myself out there a lot, and I go, no one cares, no one watches, why do I do it? So if he feels the same way, and he's fucking David Lee Roth, like, why do I even bother trying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I think I always thought it showed the brilliance, when he was able to kind of peel back the orange.
David Lee Roth is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
He's a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
And people misunderstand him. They confuse him they think maybe, he's on drugs or he's whacked, he's got brain damage. You know what? He's just brilliant. He has a brilliant mind. And that's why I almost feel sorry for him, because it's so hard to be understood when you're smarter than everyone else. And I understand this because, my dad is a scientist and he's smarter than everyone else. And it's very difficult for those of us who are in the family to even understand what he's talking about, because he's so much smarter than us. And I think that David Lee Roth is just that smart that people don't understand him, because he's
right.
brilliant.
When I started watching his podcast, and I always remember the image and the interviews from back in the day, how he was, and how he was very extravagant and very he was Diamond Dave. And I thought that the Roth show, he peeled back the orange a bit and you're able to creep inside his mind and see how his mind works. And yes, there were still elements of the Diamond Dave, but there was much more depth to him in the way he thinks in his life experiences. I mean, when you think about how David Lee Roth was the leader of the frontman of arguably one of the biggest bands in rock history, at least for a little while, and then he did his solo career. And then, people used to give him shit all the time about becoming an EMT and a paramedic. He did that by choice.
Did you know how
he did that by
that was,
but he did that by choice. It wasn't because he was desperate.
Yes, because after 9/11, when people needed help, and his heart is so big that, and he obviously his dad was an eye doctor. He's got some history, like in medical, and then he had some time. And what do you do when you've been given so much, like he was? He probably felt like it was unfair, even though he worked very hard to be famous. There probably came a point where you go, do I deserve all of these accolades? And everyone thinks I'm great. What have I really contributed that was important to the world? And, he wanted to do something important. And instead of people saying, thank you, you're so deep and you're so generous and giving and selfless. He got attacked for that too. And it's fucked up. It makes me mad.
Yeah. No,
but you know what? I think that the reason I would stay off of social media if I were him too, and post his songs when he wants to, never respond to anybody, because the more that you give to people, that you bring the crazies out of the woodwork. But I know he's probably not listening to this podcast, but if he were, I would like him to know that there are people like us who understand why he did what he did, because he's a good person who wanted to give back, because he probably on some level felt like, gyrating around in those spandex pants, like just, perhaps, wasn't deserving of all the accolades he's gotten. And he wanted to do something really worthy and save lives.
I think there's elements to that, what you're saying. I agree.
Well,
I also think
for him, I'm speaking for David Lee Roth,
right.
And it's probably not my place.
Right, but I also think
I don't think he'd mind.
I also think that he's a type of person that likes the experience, that likes the challenge. He did the EMT.
Well, he does. He does.
He did the EMT.
That's why,
right.
He went out and, to the jungles. I think it was Ecuador. I don't remember what it was. But he ran to Amazon. Yes.
And
they almost didn't get the second album, the solo album done, because he was out in the Amazon on vacation, and the album was blowing up, but he wanted to do his thing in the Amazon, and he wanted to go rock climbing, and he wanted to what this tells me about David Lee Roth is that David Lee Roth wanted to go be alone with David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth is not. I know this sounds. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. Carrie Stevens can no way compare to David Lee Roth, but Carrie Stevens is an act as well. So when I do my thing, when I'm in front of a camera and I'm putting on my show, I give a lot of myself. But you know what? The times where, and you read my book, where I went to Italy alone, and I went to Ireland alone, and nobody knew my last name. No one knew that I'm a mother. Nobody knew that I'm an actress or a model or something. I was just me. So it's kind of the same, even though I'm not brave like him. I'm not in the fucking Amazon, climbing mountains. But it was like the same thing for me to just go be Carrie Stevens, where he just wanted to go be David Lee Roth without everything else. He can reconnect to his own self and what's important in life. So, and remember who he is. And if he didn't know himself before, then he got to know himself. So I think that's why he did it. So again, I'm speaking for him, but
right.
That's what
but I think there's elements and there's truths to all the things you say. But I also think he likes the challenge. He likes the experience. And I was saying that, he did the EMT from the EMT thing.
That's why I said we're a little different. I heard that I read somewhere that he liked danger, and he
sure.
Yeah,
and then after the EMT, he went and trained sheepdogs, for farms and stuff. He did that.
Oh my God, I love that video. Did you see the Van Halen tour? Where was it 2011? I think they showed before the show, they showed him on the farm with his sheepdogs, like in video,
right
before the Van Halen show.
Yeah. And then, from there, like, he taught himself Japanese. He went and trained with samurai swordsmen in Japan. So I think Dave needs to do things for Dave. I think there's some goodness, like you said, within him that
he's a survivor.
Right. Well, I also
you know
think,
do you know how healthy that is? How healthy it is. Because he could lay in bed all day and go, I'm frozen, I suck. Instead, he's out fucking some samurai swords and like doing, he's amazing. He's an amazing person.
I just think that when you are a rock star, like he was, and you live with that adrenaline every day. Well, yes.
Will always be.
Yes. And you will live with that adrenaline every day. And then it's not there anymore. You're not on stage and you're not doing those things. You need something to pump the adrenaline. You need something that is a different experience like that. Like, hiking through the Amazon jungle. Like becoming an EMT and going on these emergency calls. Like learning to get into a mind of a dog and train a dog to round up cattle. To, learning Japanese, which is one of the hardest languages to learn. Learning how to become a samurai swordsman from people.
Oh, and he had a Japanese girlfriend.
Right, he lived in Japan too. He moved there. It wasn't
he's very private about his private life, but I did find on the internet many years ago, like he had a Japanese girlfriend. So who knows if he still does or not? But that always helps.
And then he gets like 80% of his body tattooed, So I do think that
I have not seen the tattoos, all of them. I thought it was like a very large investment he made in that tattoo cream company. Like, I don't mean to be a bitch because I know nothing about tattoos, but it seems to me like it's an expensive sunscreen.
I don't know. I can't really speak to it because I don't really know.
Well, yeah, like I said, I don't mean to knock it. I don't even know if I don't have any tattoos, so I can't say. But I've always been an advocate of sunscreen. And it seems to me that, all right. Anyway, I'm not his financial advisor, and he didn't ask me, and I don't have any tattoos, so I'm just going to shut up. I do have one tattoo. That's a lie. I have one on my toe, and it's 30 years old. I got it in memory of Eric on my toe. So I do have one toe tattooed.
Oh, that's
it needs to be well, yeah, it's a cross with a vine of thorns, teardrops of blood, and all that's left of it now is just a turquoise cross. Because John Elway, you read my book, so he was my boyfriend later. He was so jealous of my toe. He bitched about my toe all the time. So I had to wear shoes, socks to bed. Like, he couldn't stand to look at my toe. Why you are jealous of a dead guy, I don't know. I could never understand why you are jealous of my dead boyfriend, because he's gone. And it was very hurtful because he picked on my toe all the time. So I regret it to this day, but I tried to have the tattoo removed so he would stop bitching about my toe. And you can't really laser off color. Just the black part came out, so I still have the turquoise cross on it. So that's my only cat. And I regret ever trying to take it off. And it's been on my bucket list to go get, I need a tattoo artist to, freshen it up. And maybe when I do, I will buy Dave's tattoo cream. But for now, I have no use for it.
Well, here, folks, we learned something more about Carrie Stevens tonight. We learned about the tattoo on her toe and John Elway's jealousy of the tattoo.
Well, I actually posted, I can't remember how long ago, a couple years ago, I was going to get, before COVID, I was going to get it fixed, and I wanted to get I just asked the Kiss fans on social media, like, what I should get, like, how I, it's a very small area. And being a model, not that I'm modeling too much anymore, but, I don't want big body tattoos. It wouldn't be my style anyway. So the toe is the only thing. And I asked them what I should do. They all sent me like Eric Kiss makeup, all that. I don't like that. Honestly, I didn't even know Eric when he wore makeup in Kiss. So the Fox, I love it when the fans call me the Fox's Fox. It's adorable. I love that nickname, the Fox's Fox. So cute. But the reality is, Eric and I never really talked about his years with the makeup on, because it was many years later that we were together, and I never saw him in his makeup. So anyway, here's another little thing that Kiss fans don't know. I'll tell you. Eric and I had this little thing between us, Iraq. So I was Iraq. Do you know why? Because that Carrie backwards is Iraq, like Eric almost. So I was EIRRAC, Iraq.
Oh, so, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yes. So what I want to do when I get the nerve to re-tattoo this, I don't know if that'll all fit on one toe, but like as a wrap around, but I want to get EIRRAC like wrapped around, like a ring around my toe. Because that's a secret thing. Like if I didn't want to talk about Eric to people, because it brings back, some sad memories, especially if I met a stranger and they said, "What is that?" I'm not going to tell them my life story, but I would just say, "Oh, it's my name backwards." But that was our special thing between us. I was Iraq. We were one. I was me backwards on you.
That is interesting. I never would have thought.
Well,
to put
it's not
that
public
together.
knowledge. I'm just sharing it with you now.
Well, do you want me to edit that out?
No, you can keep it.
Okay.
I shared it with you for a reason.
Well, thank you.
Because I don't mind you sharing that at all. It just really hasn't come up in any interview. I don't mind people knowing it. It just hasn't come up yet.
When did that? Do you remember when you guys were putting that connection together?
Oh, I you know what? We had a very brief 4 years together. It probably happened in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like one day we woke up and figured it out. Like we had so many things between us that are too hard to put in words. Like so many little memories. I'm glad I wrote everything down. Like I wrote so much stuff down, like all of the things that mattered to us, and that was one of them. So anyway, that's just like a weird thing that like I never thought anyone else would care about. Like I have a list of things that were special between us, like puddles and belly buttons, because when we had sex, he sweat so much. Like there was always a giant puddle in my belly button of his sweat. So it was like, that was another joke between us. It's like puddles and belly buttons, like, when you're in love and you just have things like that, and when I was ever depressed or upset and he asked me what was wrong and I just didn't know, he'd say, "Do you want to lay on top of me way up high?" And it sounds perverted, but it wasn't. You know what? He laid down on the bed and I just laid on top of him and we made airplane arms like we were flying. And I'd go, "I'm way up high." And all of a sudden I felt better. Like that's just one of the little things he did for me that made me feel better. And when he knew that I was upset, you know what he did? He took out a pen and a paper and he said, "What are you upset about?" And I'm like, and you know what he did? One by one, he fixed my problems. We'd start at one. Okay, he found a solution. He found a solution. And people wonder why I'm still so in love with him and why I never forgot him. I've never met anybody who was like him, like anybody who did that for me. And I've dated, it's not in a long time now, but you know, you read my book. I did try. And he's a tough act to follow. I don't have anybody else I can say of all my relationships that ever did that for me. Like, I don't know, not even with these little crazy special memories that I have. I don't have them with anyone else.
Well, that says it all right there, right? That talks about that connection that we did, discuss in that first interview is,
Yeah, that's why, you knew that's why I can't connect with anyone else. Because when I do, it's so real and so deep that I can't do bullshit. Like, I can't take things lightly. I can't do fake. Because when you've had the real thing, it's nothing else. You just can't be fake anymore. And the other guys that I did try to have relationships with afterwards, they all ended up being jealous of him. And by the way, I never told anybody the things that I'm telling you, not even in podcasts. Like I can't remember everything I've ever said, but in general, I never rubbed it in the guys that I dated after he was dead. I never rubbed Eric in their face. I never even talked about him, like barely at all. Like, but they still found a way to be jealous. Yeah.
Well, we could talk about David Lee Roth. We could talk about Van Halen for hours on end, and we're just Van Halen fans at the end of the day. Love the perspective. Love your thoughts, Carrie. Thanks again for doing this. I appreciate it.
My favorite subject is Van Halen. So anytime you want to talk Van Halen, I'm your girl.
I will keep you up on that. I'll take you up on that. So we'll have to have you back on definitely in the near future. And look, we do have some things hopefully planned for the future as well. So we'll definitely got to start getting on that. But thank you again for doing this.
Oh my God, thank you for having me, because nothing makes me happier than Van Halen. And that's why you asked me to do this, because nothing makes you've got some followers, so do I. Hashtag Van Halen. You know what? Van Halen makes us happy. Thank you, Van Halen.
Well, everybody, that's Carrie Stevens. I'm Jay Scott. Thank you very much for listening once again. Find us on every podcast platform where you get a podcast. You can like and subscribe us. Please like and subscribe to us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on or like us on Facebook. Look up Pantheon Pods, the music network of podcasts, or network of music podcasts, I should say. Take care, everybody. We will talk again soon. Thank you.
With all your dreams and visions, I President Barack Obama.
Virginia, we are counting on you. Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. But you can stop them by voting yes by April 21st. Help put our elections back on a level playing field and let voters decide, not politicians. Vote yes by April 21st.
Paid for by Virginians for Fair Elections.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. second half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.